All right, there we go. Let's just get everything set up. Welcome to another episode of Repost and Riposte, back from hiatus. I had a couple weeks there where I was out of town and doing other TSL things, and so I ended up taking a break from the show for a little bit. Let's make sure everybody can hear me. Out of town and doing other TSL. Cool. I just wanted to make sure because I'm using our new mic. You can't really see it because I'm wearing a black shirt, but I have a lab mic on. And so I just wanted to make sure that it was working okay. And that is working. So cool. All right. So if you're not familiar with Repost and Riposte, lately what I've been doing is going over specific tactics and habits in TSL. And I've been breaking them down and talking about the disadvantages, the advantages of other strategies, and going from there. So, bad TSL habits and how to fix them is what I've called it, or fixing bad TSL habits. So today, I'm going to talk about no defense. What that means is a common bad habit in TSL is because of our rule set, we only require first if you make the hit, you get the point. So many people employ the strategy that I don't need to have any defense whatsoever. I just need to be the first. And obviously that leads to things like suicidal attacks, which I've talked about in past episodes. It's led to a couple other things. Cool. And I wanted to do one more thing. Just another nice little feature. There we go. Got a little logo in the corner. Thank you, Jerry. I appreciate it. So, okay. So, the no defense, again, no defense people, do things like suicidal attacks. They basically just do whatever they need to do to get that first point in. Can it work? And can you find success in TSL without employing a defensive strategy? Yes. There are examples of fighters, I'm not going to name any, who have achieved great success with little to no defensive strategy whatsoever. And I'm not saying that a no defense strategy is necessarily a bad thing, well, it is a bad thing, and there's reasons why, but I'll say it's not necessarily going to look at it as a solely negative thing. There are advantages to it. I would say there are certain cases and certain types of fighters where that is a perfectly valid strategy. But as the overarching principle to how you fight in TSL, I would strongly suggest against it. So, cool, super relevant. Thank you, Christian. So basically, I want to make sure that everybody understands that, is defense. Oops, sorry, I didn't realize I'm hitting my vehicle back there. There is a reason for using it, but most of the time there's not really. There is a reason to incorporate some form of defense. Does that mean you need to be ultra defensive and defending everything and only doing counterfighting and things like that? No. But it means that there are advantages and disadvantages to the, there are more, I would say there's more disadvantages than there are advantages to the no defense strategy. But I will say as a counterpoint, one thing you will see for people that do the no defense strategy is with much taller opponents with longer reach. I'm not saying all of them, I'm saying it's just a common thing because they don't have to reach as far to make contact with you. Therefore, it becomes a much more common thing that you're never going to get into distance, so they don't really need to defend themselves as much. That doesn't mean they don't defend themselves, but I'm just saying that does become a common theme. So I am going to flip my camera here. And you should still be able to hear me, no problem. I just want to rotate my iPad so I can see that it actually is working. Cool. All right. So, all right, I'm going to grab my gloves here. So when I'm talking about the no defense strategy, we are talking about people that in a fight, they are just going to, fight, and they're just going to go bam and hit, or they're going to dive out at you, or they're going to just reach their arm out one-handed and try to get as wide as possible, right? That doesn't mean, but basically they do that in every exchange, right? Doesn't mean that I won't occasionally, go here and hit someone because I see an opening. That's different. I'm referring to the people that solely rely on that. And I'll give you an example. If you watch some fights in TSL, you'll see kind of this behavior. I'm going to grab another blade just to kind of give you, like, if they're both fighting, right? It's basically fighters ready, fight, bam. Fighters ready, fight, bam. Fighters ready, fight, bam. That is hard to watch. It's very bad technique. It's almost no skill whatsoever. It just is. It's just not fun. It's not, in my opinion, it's not the thing that makes TSL fun, right? The game of it, right? So how do we combat that? So let's approach it two ways. First of all, one, let's approach it as you're a fighter who is regularly doing that. They regularly show little to no defense. So obviously the easiest thing to do is to start working on your guards. And I'm not going to go over guards too much today, but I'm really more talking about just, you need to know how to defend yourself. When I do a certain guard, can I defend myself? So these are things to try with a sparring partner. If I do certain guards, if I guard here, am I doing it properly? That's an important thing to know. If I, block to my head, am I blocking properly? Is it going to hit my hands? Is it going to, tip down and then they're going to hit me in the head anyway? Am I leaving something else open? So that's things to think about, is working on those guards. And I will say in the style that you know to fight in, because I'm not here to change your fighting background. So if you fight one-handed and you fight in a side sword style and you want to do all the different, side sword styles guards, go right ahead. If you fight in a saber style and you know that these are your guards, right? These are the different guards that go ahead and use them, but utilize them, right? That is the first thing. One, learn to adapt your brain to defend yourself. That if an opponent is coming at you, that your strategy is not to try to hit them first all the time. Again, there's always a scenario where it is not like that. But what I mean is that, if they're coming at you and I just want to go, and I just want to hit them. Yeah, and I do that every time they try to hit me and I just try to be faster. That happens with a lot of opponents that are very fast but don't incorporate any defense. It just leads to double hits. It leads to just not engaging fights. And it leads to difficult calls from the judges. So they call one way versus the other and fighters get frustrated. It's frustrating for the judges too, because they're not seeing clean hits. So it's overall not a good time. Now, obviously that's different from, say, striking into someone's preparation, meaning if I go to hit here and then the opponent comes in and they hit me in the arm, that's a different thing, different topic altogether. But start to think about how you can defend yourself. So just with basic guards. And when I say basic, I mean just the guards, because a lot of times people say, oh, you learn your guards and then you do a parry, right? Oh, I'm going to do a parry and I'm going to go all the way out here. Is there a reason why I need to bring my blade all the way outside of my body? No, not really. All I really need is that. All I need is enough that if they were cutting on the outside here, then I'm going to defend myself. That's all I need, right? I don't need to push them all the way outside, because that adds time for me to react further. So if I wanted to go here and hit, right? If I go here and hit, that's a longer distance traveled for my blade. So that's a way to think about your defense with just the basic guards that you know. Can you defend yourself? And I mean in a tight circle around your body. So like I say, basic guards, right? Nothing too complicated. Can you defend yourself from different cuts? Which ones defend? Which cuts? So like focus, knowing this, okay, this is going to defend like somebody doing a one cut on me, right? Or something like that. It depends, but this is going to, somebody doing an overhead strike. Okay, I'm going to do that. Or that, it doesn't matter. But in this case, think about what I do, because I don't need to do this, right? That's inefficient, and I block my face sort of. And then, I'm adding more time to the move after that. I think that's one of the main reasons a lot of people don't focus on the defense, because they feel they're slower at that point. And this is only just a simple block counter kind of scenario. So there's a whole, we could go super into the weeds about this, but let me just double check. Cool. Just double checking the comments and everything. Cool. So I got Alicia saying, sorry, dishes need to be done. I get it. Maybe a technical aspect of the actual competition might need to be looked at a little bit closer. So, okay. Question from watching a lot of TSL fights. And I'm going to put this up on the screen. Sorry, I'm just going to flip around real quick because I just don't want to. I don't know the rules, but one thing I never see is dodging. Is that not a thing or not allowed? So I'll flip back over now to the other. Dodging is most definitely allowed. People don't do it. And that, again, is another part of the no defense. That's actually another thing I was going to talk about. Utilizing footwork to create defense. Sometimes that is, utilizing it to dodge or move away, like a very quick maneuver. Sometimes that is also just, I only need to, if someone's striking at me and I only need to go back a little bit, right? Maybe I only need to slip my foot back. Maybe I only need to do a slight corner step, right? Step to the angle. People don't do it because they just get in this straight on, I got to hit my opponent. The rules in TSL are the first one to make the hit. If I make a hit, that's a point. So technically, there's no defensive advantage in the point structure. There's no afterblow rule or something like that. There's no defensive bonus or anything along those lines. So with that being, people tend to fall into the just, I'm going to hit you. I'm going to hit you, right? Oh, you're coming at me? I'm going to hit you, and I'm not going to dodge, right? They're not even going to step. I step there just out of habit, right? So that happens a lot. So it's just a thing where, yeah, a lot of people don't tend, whether that be because of bad habits from training, they're new to this. I mean, that's always a common thing, is that we have a lot of people that are very new to fighting for the very first time with a weapon. And it happens that it can be, that it can be difficult to, if no one's there to tell them, hey, this is a habit that you probably don't want to have, which is why I kind of do this series, because there's all these habits that can be broken that aren't that difficult to break and don't even really require like a very skilled instructor to do it. You can watch your own tape. You can monitor yourself while you're fighting and sparring and training and fix these things. So yeah, so I talked about how, going back to it, and then I'm going to talk a little bit more about maneuvering and footwork, but I talked about blocking, right, being a very simple way of defense, and only with guards. I'm not talking about specific blocking techniques or specific parries or specific maneuvers. I'm not talking about like a preem or something like that. I'm just talking about around your body, the perimeter around your body, blocking, whether it's one-handed, whether it's two-handed, and being able to protect yourself, right? and not pushing them out too far. That is a basic way to incorporate defense no matter what your skill level is. Because if you're, a person that, I don't know, this is not a guard I would normally be in, but if you're a person that they fight like this, there's a lot of things wrong with this stance and everything. I know that. But they go here and they want to just go, and they just want to hit, right? Even if you're that person, right? You can be here. If you can do block hit, like that, or block hit, that alone gives you an advantage that you have set aside your opponent's blade for just a second, and you're utilizing the same speed that you already have against them, but you're not doing it at the risk of yourself. Because a lot of times when we get into these, everybody is hitting each other, fight, fight, and then they just do that, right? And we have to make these questionable calls as directors or judges. It makes it more frustrating for the fighters personally, because you're going to think you hit first. They're going to think they hit first. And in reality, neither of you are right. You both hit at about the same time. And maybe there was a very slight difference that it was noticeable from the judges, that it didn't get a simultaneous call. So the cleaner you can learn to fight, the faster you can learn to be. Because, I don't have to do much to go, from, say, I don't know, here to here, right? That's not much. That's just a basic movement. Here to here is a very basic movement, same thing. And then you can incorporate whatever footwork you want, whatever crazy thing. I don't recommend it, but if you go and you want to just jump in and just be crazy and suicidal, I'll even do that, because you've successfully, at least for a second, set aside your opponent's blade, and then you've worked into it. So that's something that I would add to that, to your repertoire. If you are in that, I am very new to this, I don't understand how to defend myself, the basic thing you can do is look at the guards for the style you want to fight in: one-handed, two-handed, saber, side sword, rapier, long sword, katana, whatever. Look at those guards, adapt them to the system, obviously, because again, long sword, no quillins, no cage, just the suba. Adapt it, learn those guards, and learn just simple guard counter, right? Parry, riposte, so very basic thing. And when I say basic, I said basic meaning tight inside the body. So no matter what guard you see, if you see someone doing choreography and they're doing this and they're blocking this high, don't do that in a fight. It takes a lot of time to get that high. You don't need to be that high. That is a visual thing for a choreography partner, but it also is a visual thing for, it's a big action that the crowd can see, that the audience can see, whether it's a camera audience or a live audience. So I would recommend, don't learn your guards from something that is choreography based. So if someone's teaching you how to fight like a samurai and the background is mainly in fight choreography, that may not always be the best solution. It depends on who it is. Like if you see like, if you see my instructor, Stephen Fick, who teaches at Combat Con, and he teaches LED Saber, he teaches it with a historical European martial arts background, but he can teach it so it's a choreography action or an actual martial action. So just make sure you're paying attention to who's teaching that guard. If you want to go very basic, you can go into some of the historical European martial arts manuals, or some of the modern manuals that exist, stuff from people like Guy Windsor. That stuff will help you improve just that action, just a very basic action. Bam, so bam, bam, right? And it's just, here and I cut, right? I block and I cut. I block high and I cut, right? I'm just doing some basic stuff. Leg hits are always tough, but it's like, I block and I cut, right? Because also you don't want to thrust into their belly if they're lunging at you. But those are different ways to think about the first part of defense. And then we're going to move on to the next thing after I look at other people. So I'm going to talk about footwork next. Just want to double check the chat. So, all right. So, okay, nothing else in the chat. So we're good there. All right. Cool. So, basically, what I will say is I talked a little bit about footwork here, but I'm going to talk more in detail. So, this is the second part. In my opinion, this is more effective than any block you can do, is being aware of the distance between your opponent and your opponent's blade, and your blade and yourself. So basically, because there's two parts to you, right? There's this distance, and then there's my physical body's distance, and the same with your opponent. There's your opponent's body's distance and your opponent's blade's distance, right? And getting an idea for that takes time and takes experience, and it's different from every opponent. But the big thing you can do the big game changer with that is looking at how you can use your footwork to create defense. So I mentioned the simple things like slips of your foot, right? So if I'm here and someone tries to hit me here or even sweep at my leg, right? That creates a lot of space. It actually creates about this much space up here that you don't realize, right? But I can do this and quickly come back, right? I can do this, and you see how this shoulder drops back. So this part. So say someone was cutting at this shoulder. Let's say I'm down here, right? If someone cuts there, I've created extra space with just a step of my foot. So that is a way to utilize your footwork, utilize simple steps to an angle. And keep in mind, whether you move your front or back foot changes things. So if I move this, right, nothing changes with my weapon, right? But if I move back here, my weapon changes. So this will change my body's distance, and this will change my weapon distance. So you see that? So that's just something to consider, is that your front foot is going to change your body distance, and this is going to change your weapon's distance. So if I step forward here, nothing really changes with my blade. Oh, now my body has moved in. I think I might have said that wrong, but you get the idea. If I do this, my body moves. If I do this, my blade is going to move, right? Because of where it is on my body. So think about where you can move. And that's part of one thing I mentioned. I don't know if I mentioned it. I think I did mention in a previous Repost and Riposte about fighting in a straight line. Simple steps to an angle can make all the difference in how you have an opening, but also how you are protected, and then also how you could theoretically move out of the way or dodge something. So, like I say, when there's a dodge, it doesn't have to be like a big I jump out of the way, right? Or I duck down completely or something like that. Like if that happens and it looks good, cool, but that's kind of wasted motion. We don't need that much to dodge, right? In reality, sometimes all we need is like a simple adjustment of whether it be our blade or our body. So something like this. So right now, this is the closest part to my opponent, right? If I pull this back, now there's all this space here, right? If I incorporate that with a little bit of footwork, and I'm just doing maybe a switch in my footwork, right? Rather than a passing step or a step back. And I do this, bam. So maybe if I left this open, right? Oh, look, my hand is open, right? Hit my hand, come on, hit my arm, it's wide open, right? And I go like this. I've now changed that. So in the time in which they would hit, it would swing by them, and then I hit again. Nothing complicated. That's a very basic way to think about it. And again, there are variations that make this applicable or not applicable, or where this wouldn't work. I'm just trying to explain this in as simple terms as possible, so you kind of understand the ways that you can build your own strategies and techniques without having to constantly like be fighting an uphill battle. Like, why can I never get a clean hit in where the judges see it? Because I'll tell you, that's one of the most frustrating things. And I am guilty of this as well. I am 100% guilty of this. You can look at past fights of mine. I do it. I 100% do it sometimes, where I just think, tunnel vision, and I don't incorporate any type of defensive strategy. Defensive strategy also, as a third part, can also mean utilizing defense within your offense. So what does that mean? Things like certain attacks that box out, that protect your side, right? So if my opponent's blade is over here, right, so on their right side, and I do something like this, right, and I go to hit them in the head, let's just say I'm thrusting, I am putting this blade out there, so it is actually protecting me should they decide to cut down. If I, defend against my opponent and then go to hit, and when I hit them, it knocks their blade down, because that's actually what it would do if I did like a windshield wiper like this. It knocks their blade down, and I try to hit them, and let's just say they move. This will now defend me on this side. So I'm thinking about where my blade is in positioning when I'm doing offensive things as well. If I'm going to lunge at someone, I'm not going to lunge at them like this straight on, because I'm probably opening up my hand, right? But if their blade is, depending what side their blade is on, I might actually turn a little bit, right? And get myself a little bit of angle. We call that, in rapier, we call that engagement and opposition. Here versus here. Now in rapier, I have more of a cage to protect my hand, but we kind of will thrust in opposition, right? Because then if their blade is on the outside, it comes down, it'll hit the suba, the cage, or the quillins in that case. But let me grab my rapier, because I will give you a better visual example. So we do things like that. Like, so if I thrust like that, and they would lunge back against me, right? It changes the line that they can go. So their blade is now there. But if I'm in engagement, which is straight on, bam, it's going to hit me as well. So that is actually what you do in a thrusting game like rapier, but it's a way to think about how your blade is moving on an attack, so you are also being defensive as well. I talked about cutting mechanics and not cutting with your hands, meaning not doing this in a previous episode. That, right, is what I would want to do. What does that do? If I do a cut like that and I bring my blade forward, my blade is now leading. My blade is protecting me, so defense, while I'm being solely offensive. So if they would cut with bad strategy like this actually would cut right into their hands, technically, if you have good cutting mechanics to cut into them. So I'm just going to do this and swipe it down. But it feels a little weird. Like if I'm cutting on Bob, bam, right? That's what I'm doing. So you get the idea that how you cut or how you thrust in an offensive move is also going to impact your defense. So that, I would say, like, I'm not going to go too detailed into this specific part. I want to talk about it more, but visually, those are the three things I would do if I have lack of defense that I would try to incorporate within my existing tool set. So this is not about re-engineering your entire fighting strategy. It very well might need re-engineering, right? Maybe it doesn't work at all and you need to learn something different, or modify it based upon how you move. But you can very easily incorporate basic guards, right? And you can very easily incorporate basic guards where I step in and do something like that, right? If I step in and box someone out and then hit them, that's fine, right? But that's better than going and just hitting, right? If I just go here and I hit, if that blade was coming in, I'm going to get hit. But if I go bam, bam, and I've knocked their blade away and it hits their blade away and then I extend in, is going to be more effective, right? You don't have to sacrifice your defense. And the other thing I'll add to that is that you don't have to sacrifice that, and that's also why you don't need to do a suicidal attack. You can incorporate defense. If you're going to do a big dynamic movement, a jump in or something like that, there are still ways you can incorporate that safely. And I say safely from a defensive, not getting the point against you kind of thing, not safely as far as like you're never going to take a hit. But you can still think about, where am I going to step? How am I going to step? Where's my blade going to be? There's a way to utilize some forms of defense, whether that be slight movements off to the side to an angle. Stepping to an angle forward is a very effective way to create some minor defensive advantages while still being offensive. And then making sure that your blade is also closing your lines, the outer and inner lines, right? So in this case, there's outer here, and then there's high and low. Those are kind of like the four lines in, well, it can be longsword, rapier. There's different definitions for them, but that's something you can think about in the context of how you can protect yourself. What do I need to do? Can I strike and protect myself at the same time? Do I need to defend and then strike? Can I step a certain way? Can I step here and do the same strike, right? And if they were going to cut here, now this is no longer open, right? Because I've gone back. Different ways to think about it, utilizing guards, footwork, and just good technique on your offensive attacks, where you're utilizing defensive angles with your blade. So that's gonna wrap that part up. I will flip around, see if there's any comments, but cool. All right, so Alicia said, for the record, Rodelli's saber is brutal on the arm. Yeah, as far as cuts to the arm, I know that's a common part of a lot of the saber systems. I don't know Rodelli in detail, but I know the basics of it. So, and Alan, defending TSL 4 tournament champion, is on. Welcome. So you kind of get an idea of what I'm talking about when I mean no defense strategy and why it's a bad thing. I'll kind of go into another couple reasons why the no defense strategy is not necessarily the greatest thing. The big thing that happens is the fights don't end up looking that good, right? You're looking at like basically just two people just hitting each other, and that's it, right? And I said that's hard for the judges, it's frustrating for the fighters, but from a trying to grow a sport thing, as the media lead for TSL, those are the most boring fights to watch, to have to edit together. They're just not fun, to be perfectly honest. It could be better, right? It's just not fun at all. So I will say that if you want to be a better looking fighter, yes, if you fight with a no defense strategy, could you do some amazing jump move or slide or something like that? And then, you're the big hero, but you took a shot to the face as well. Yeah, sure. But when that doesn't work, 60, 70% of the time, you look foolish, right? So, I have said previously, I think I said it on the round table that I had with Alec and Mark, also Quarant TV, that I found that with TSL, I want to feel cool versus looking cool. Now, will I do moves occasionally that look really cool? Yes, it can happen. And they're good techniques and everything. But it's not, you definitely don't want to think about like, I'm going to do this move and I'm going to look really cool. I'll say two things. One, it never looks as cool as you think it is, right? There are times where there's been cool things that have happened, but most of the time people have tried to pull off cool things. I'm saying cool like in quotes, but they don't look that good. And like I say, people look foolish. So that's one thing. I also know that when I've done really good techniques that I've learned, practice techniques or paired techniques, as far as like plays in a specific, like a treatise or something like that, and I pull it off successfully, it feels amazing. I feel cool. I feel powerful. But I watch back and I look at those techniques on film and they don't look that good. So, like I say, I've done a couple things that I can occasionally say are cool, but most of the time when I do something, it's like, wow, I did that really well. That was awesome. I watch it and it's like, oh, that looked awful. So that's just a thing to maybe think about in your brain as far as what techniques you want to use. Sorry, one sec. And then Jerry said, I'll take my technical fighting over suicide attacks. And then Alicia said, training the arm to hold the 700-gram saber and cutting cleanly. Yeah, that is brutal on the arm. It takes a lot of practice to do one-handed cuts with a heavy weapon. I mean, a rapier is a heavy weapon too. And then Alan asked, are there any paired exercises that you do? So what, when you're saying paired exercises, so exercises I would do with an opponent to work on my defense, is that what you're asking about? Just clarifying so I know what to show. But yeah, the big thing is that, we're TSL 5 coming up, less than a month. You're going to see a lot of no defense strategies, right? But there are, and I would say also that it's too late, too close to the event to it's too close to the event to make a massive change to your fighting style. Could you incorporate some of these things that I'm talking about before TSL 5? On a minor scale, yes. But in reality, I would only work on like one, maybe two elements of it, and then just start to think about it. Because the minute you start adding too many new things that are not practiced instinct, you will start to suffer because you will start to overthink in the fight, most likely. I have most definitely done that, and it has destroyed me mentally because I just get completely out of the fight, and then I don't fight my fight anymore. I fight their fight, and then they win. So yes, he says exercises with another person. Let me think about it. So okay, yeah, I can show one that I can think of. So I'll just very basically. So I was talking about utilizing footwork and guards, and I didn't necessarily even mean to defend in this case. But one thing you can do is very slow play. So what I mean is like dictate, you can only do a certain types of cuts or something like that. Like, oh, okay, I can only cut from 1 or 2, or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6, right? Like those are the only cuts that I'm allowed to do. And you're working at a slow rate, so this does not require, this is a partner drill. Do this with someone you trust though. Because basically we're talking about like, okay, I'm going to cut in from a 1 and I'm doing it at this speed. And so what I will do is, if that person is cutting at me in distance, right? What I will do is think about how can I defend myself? And obviously, yes, very easily I could parry, but this is without a parry. How can I maneuver my body in as small an action as possible to make sure that I don't get hit? So let's just say I'm here in long point. If that person is cutting down, and let's say they're in distance to my shoulder, right, and they could also hit my arms, right, what can I do? Well, theoretically, I could do that. I could bring it up into posta de dana, right? I could do that. That might protect me. It depends. But I need to try it. So they're coming down at me at this speed. And again, we're always operating at this speed. And then basically I do that. Okay, that didn't work. I still took a hit, right? And then I need to do something different. Okay, I'm going to go into here, right? Or, oh, I need to make a minor step, right? Actually, in reality, that's all the step I need to do. I don't need to move the back leg. But if, and then you can see and start to figure out two things. One, what simple actions can you do just moving between guards and slightly maneuvering with your hips and your shoulders without getting all twisted up, and slight footwork movements to figure out how to effectively not be there, to effectively dodge somebody's attack. That is a useful strategy. You know, if someone's coming up, what do I need to do? Okay, so they're going to strike up at me and they're essentially cutting up here, right? And let's just say I'm, you know, in middle iron door, right? And they're going to hit me in the hand, you know. So, oh, okay, middle iron door. Then I'm just going to go, bam, and go back into. I'm bad. I'm bad with remembering long sword guards. I apologize. But basically, you know, I'm going to go here. I'm going to go here, and that's all I need, right? Because if I'm here, my hand is exposed, and I hear. Maybe that's all I needed. And it's hard to show this off without a partner, but you get the idea that, you know, moving very slowly, like I would cut and defend, right? And then they would cut and I would look for what movement I was doing. Do I just need to do that? Do I just need to drop into tail guard? You know, do I just need to, like, what can I do? And this can be a one-handed or two-handed. It does not matter what style. I'm just showing it from a two-handed, but you know, okay, if I'm here, right, in a lower guard and they're striking, you know, let's just say they're striking down at a 1, okay? I know that I could maybe block that way, right? Could I slip? Yes, I could slip my foot back, right? Could I, and then also when you want to make this incorporating your guards a little bit, I can go here, right? But I can do this, right? So I could be here guarding that specific shot, but not actually taking the hit. And then I can even see, then it gives me a better idea of what, when I need to incorporate a guard or not. So like, I see this more as mainly as moving between guards and learning how to dodge, but it also gives you a great understanding of distance, right? You understand that if they're cutting here where they could hit my shoulder like this, what do I need to do to be out of distance? And when I say out of distance, I mean that, it's hard to do it with one-handed, but I mean like that close, where it's just in front of my face, but it completely misses, right? I don't need to be, you know, where the blade is just completely far away. It's where the blade is only this far away, right? The more comfortable you get with that distance and you understand the distance, if you understand the difference between a hit and a just slight miss, you will have more effective defensive strategy than anybody else, right? There's lots of ways to do it, but that's one exercise that I find effective, because it doesn't require you to put on all the armor. It doesn't require you to do all that stuff, because you're just working very slowly and you're just trusting each other and just like, oh, you know, that hit me. Okay, I need to figure something out. Okay, I'm going to do this, and then it doesn't hit me anymore. Again, it's hard to hit myself with this, but you get the idea that it's about moving slowly and slowly learning the smallest movement possible to dodge. You don't need to go, if someone cuts in at me, I don't need to go, and go all the way back, right? That's more than I need. Maybe all I need to do is slip my foot back and go here, and then I'm ready to go back and strike at them. And then they would learn how to dodge that. So it's a good way to work back and forth with a partner. But you're simplifying the cuts. You're not trying to do weird things and it's like, oh, I'm going to cut and then I'm going to thrust at you. Or this is just about learning with a basic cut, distance, a distance, proper distance defensively and proper distance offensively, right? Because if I go here and I dodge a cut, and I move and that move out of the way and I go to cut back and I'm way out of distance from them, I didn't move properly into distance. So then I need to go, okay, I need to step, and I'm cutting into my leg. I know, apologize. I need to step and do this, right? So that's just one exercise that I like doing. There's a lot of other ways to do it, but that's kind of a really good one because you can incorporate kind of any technique you want. You don't have to be doing a specific thing. So hopefully that helps. Other things that I like doing. Obviously figuring out specific plays that you can do. And when I say a play, I mean like a 2 to 3 action kind of thing you would see in a treatise where it's like, if they cut here, you defend here, and then you do this, and it creates this. Because then you learn the subtle differences that happen, and that's a good way to incorporate defense. So like if you have something where it's like they're going to strike at you here, and you're going to defend, and you're going to hit, and you're going to move out of distance, right? That's a good thing to practice because you can learn what specific footwork works there, what specific angles, where you hit on the blade. You can dial that. You can expand on this, on what you need to do for an effective defense strategy. You can expand on that for so long, as far as like I say, where you hit on the blade, the timing, the specific footwork, the timing of your footwork and your blade, whether you're going to incorporate more arm technique, or which part of if you're two-handed, right? Let's say it's a two-handed defense. Am I pushing this with the backhand? Am I pushing this with the front hand? Those things will all have different impacts. And again, this gets a little off the topic of no defense, but it's really in the context of, if you learn some defensive plays with your partner, and you can do these, I would recommend, if you were doing like defensive plays where you're actually like making light contact, have some armor on, have mask and gorget and gloves on, so you can just very easily, and then you limit where you're going to hit. You can do it in full armor. It's just, you're going to sweat a lot faster. So that's another common thing, is if there's like specific, series of actions that you want to attempt, that you want to incorporate into your repertoire, that's a good way to practice and get the muscle memory to remember and be instinctively react that way, as opposed to try to do that in a fight, in a tournament, when it's just in your just in your brain. It's not in you're not no-minding it. It's not the warrior mind or something like that, depending how you want to discuss it. But that's another thing to do. And if you want to look at like specific play, and again, when I'm talking plays, I'm talking like hematreatise plays. But if you want to talk about specific actions and techniques, that's a very easy thing to do. And you can do that with any type of cut. Like, just look at basic defense, parry, riposte kind of stuff. That's a good place to start. And then you get very comfortable with it, and you can learn how far you need to move over, which is in reality not really a lot. So I would always say, no matter what technique you're learning, what's the smallest, most minimal thing you can do to make that technique effective? That's what you need to do. Just because I can, push somebody way out with a parry, does not mean it was an effective parry. It was a parry. It worked to push them aside, but it was not effective in that it takes me that much longer to get over to try to hit them. And then by that time, they might move out of distance. So if I parry to here and then I can reach, that is a lot more effective, a lot less time, and I can start to work on that. I do practice head cuts with a styrofoam head on my dress form. If I hit it too hard, it falls off. I also work wrist cuts on the arm. If the arm swings, I've smacked it rather than cut it. Yeah, I mean, those are the tightest actions that you can do, whether it be defensively or offensively. And again, when I say offensively, I'm also adding that you can cut defensively, right? You can use an offensive cut and be defensive and protect yourself. So that's a good way. I mean, I use the bob a lot. Sometimes that really helps me understand, because sometimes I realize I overreach with a cut or something like that. I lean too much. I'm too heavy, right? Too forward in my stance. So I need to figure out, okay, what do I need to do to get that more balanced stance and be within distance? And then how am I going to get from an attack? How am I going to get on defense as well? That's another element of defense that you can incorporate, is thinking about, if I attack first, what's my next thing for defense? Do I need to bring my blade in for a parry? Do I need to step a certain way? What do I need to do to get myself protected? Mainly, this is, and many would ask, well, why do we do that in TSL? It doesn't matter, it's not real life, it's not real combat or anything like that. It matters in the context of if you don't defend yourself on that second intention, maybe only 2 judges saw that first hit, right? But the other 2 judges saw the second hit. If I cut in and then they hit me to the arm, right, afterwards. So I cut and they hit me in the arm. That might be seen by the judges as a point to them, even though you may have clearly hit them, but maybe the other 2 judges, their angle was obscured. The director didn't see it because they didn't have the angle either. And then the point goes to them. So if I hit and then defend and it clearly hits my blade and it's like clacks away, guess what? Those 2 judges are going to call for you. Those 2 judges are going to say, I didn't see anything. The director is going to look at those 2 judges and say, point. That's how it works. That's how you can utilize that in a tag system where you're looking at the first, a tag system, when you're looking at the first to get the point. You don't have to sacrifice your defensive actions to make your, to fight effectively. We all do it. We all also fight to that hit and we stop, right? But if we continue with the defense and maybe another hit or something like that before they call hold, do it, because the more it is clear that you got a hit before the hold is called. Again, before the hold is called. Once the hold is called, stop whatever you're doing. Unless you're just defending yourself, that's a little different. But you just do that, and then look, if I go here, if I hit them in the arm, I block and then I hit again, right? And then they call hold. And maybe the director called hold for the first hit, but it was just such a bam, 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 right, kind of thing. But I hit him twice, right? Better chance that the judge saw those 2 hits. The other judges saw, the defense, and it increases your chances of getting the point. So it's a way of, you can use defense to get points in this system. And it doesn't only have to be a counter kind of action. I'm just showing it in a counter or explaining it in a counter because it's the easiest way to break it down. But there are ways to utilize effective defense to increase your odds of getting a point. That's how you work that system. Yes, you can there are ways to rig the system in your favor with no defense, specific types of cuts and things like that because they're bigger, right? But that will only work to a certain degree. It will only work in certain scenarios with certain judges. You won't be able to, when you get to the more higher echelon of fighters, you won't really be able to get away with it as much. You probably won't be able to get away with it with the judges as much. So those are just things to think about, because the sooner you can incorporate a defensive strategy of some kind, it doesn't have to be, incorporating everything I said, and that's what, if you only unincorporate this, 25% of the time, and every other time you just want to just do those, those lunging attacks, right, that people do where they just all attack each other. At the very least, I'll say is that your fight will look 25% better if you're incorporating proper defense into it. So that's what I would argue, is that it's just much more effective to much more better to watch if someone can defend. I mean, honestly, what are the best exchanges in TSL, in HEMA, the best exchanges that you've ever seen? Are they one hit kills? Sometimes. Very, very rarely though. I'm gonna argue there's very rare scenarios where the best exchanges, and I'm talking about an exchange, I'm not talking about the best move, right? The best exchange is a back and forth between the opponent. They strike here, and I defend. They strike back, it defend, I strike again. And there's this back and forth, and we're trying different things, and we're moving around each other. That's an engaging, fun to watch, great technique. Those are the best fights that exist in TSL. And I'm trying to think of examples, but the one example, Alan being on, is in the Unity rule set, the continuous fighting rule set, because it requires a level of defense, because if you don't defend yourself before you get out of measure, you're not going to get the point you thought you were going to get. So the back and forth exchanges can be really, really, really fun to watch and really visually appealing. Not to mention that they feel cool to be involved in. So, but there are definitely back and forth exchanges that have happened amongst fighters. I mean, Alan and I have had matches where that's happened. And there's been other people where there's been really great back and forth exchanges with defense and technique, defensive technique through parries or footwork that just look really good. And we don't have to worry about this just like, oh, they're just running into each other. And honestly, you want an example of what that, what people see when they see, what they perceive to be, technique that was without defense. You look at some of the comments on YouTube, right? You look at some of the comments where people just say, oh, nobody's showing any defense and they're not that good of fighters, right? The less you utilize a defensive strategy, hey, Kang, what's going on? The less you utilize a defensive strategy, the worse it's going to look, and the worse you're going to open yourselves up to ridicule. Will that mean you're going to get rid of all ridicule, if you show great defensive technique all the time? No. But you can at least have a little bit more comfort in knowing what you're going to be doing. So hopefully that gives you kind of an idea of how you can start to think about defense within the way you move, because it's going to be very, you'll find that the no defense element only takes you so far. Your skill can only progress so far, first of all. And then your accomplishments in the sport can only progress so far without incorporating some form of defensive strategy. And I've mentioned that fighters have, achieved great things with no defense strategies. That is true. But I also will say that those fighters, to get better, started incorporating more defensive strategies, because they realized that when they're the target, when they're the thing everybody's looking to go after, they start utilizing more defensive techniques. So that is something just to consider, with that, is that, how much do you want to grow? When my breakout time for TSL, and this is my opinion, right? My breakout, season or whatever you want to call it, was at TSL 3. And at that point, I was effectively able to use my defense defensive technique and then getting the counter back in. And that was the reason that I was able to push further than I had ever pushed. And this is in standard. I'm not talking about like exotics. But I was able to push further than I was able to go because I was able to utilize a defensive technique to my advantage. And you use that against the people that didn't. And then also compete at a high level against the people that do use good defensive techniques. That's what I'll say. It's just that was a point at which my game completely changed, was when I started focusing on what I could do to defend myself or be out of harm's way, and working beyond that. So that's about an hour. So I won't talk any more about the topic unless somebody has questions. So if there are questions, I'm open for any question that you have about it. So as Alan asked the question earlier, but what I will say is, we have Combat Con coming up in 22 days. What is that? I don't know. I'm not. What is that? Yeah. So 1, 2, 3 weeks. 3 weeks. The first Combat Con tournaments will be happening. So that is the first day of Combat Con and TSL 5. So we have that coming up. We will be live streaming, assuming the Flamingo internet in Vegas holds out. We will be live streaming every single minute. We will be recording. We will be switching between rings, but we will be hopefully recording every single ring of every single match. I hope. It's that's a big upgrade to what we were able to do in the past, where certain matches were not recorded, and maybe there were some good matches in there. So that's our goal, and then we're also going to have a really nice setup for the finals. So that is the other thing we're going to be doing. So just keep that in mind, that coming up in 3 weeks, whether you're attending or you're not attending. I think right now, if you're attending, you have like 7 days or whatever to get your final vaccination shot, if you were doing that. So if you had to get a second shot, so probably if you are not getting that, you're talking like getting the one shot option, because it's got to be 14 days between now and the beginning of Combat Con. Alicia's putting together their repair and recovery kits. Cool. Yeah, I'm going. I literally had my in my little studio here behind the camera, where I was showing off technique. I had all my gear laid out yesterday, and I was kind of going through it all and seeing what I need. And I got to order some blades. I got to order one or two other little things, because I didn't realize certain things are damaged that were not damaged in the past. So I've used my gear a little bit, but I haven't used some of it. So, and maybe I ignored some stuff in the past that I didn't know. So I have that happening. So yeah, go through your stuff, make sure that your gear is all ready. Whether that be your armor, your blades, your hilts. I have a hilt away for repair right now, so I can hopefully get that back in time. Obviously, I have other hilts I can use, but so just keep that in mind, that you want to make sure that you have everything you need, so you're ready to go. There's going to be, Purple Heart's going to be there, right? But I would hate that you would have to go to Purple Heart and say, I need a pair of gloves. And they're like, well, we don't have any gloves because we just sold the last pair, right? So just as an example, I don't want anyone to have to go through that. And we're very much discouraging the loaning element. So if it's something you're loaning to someone, you're loaning it for the length of the tournament. You're not necessarily the switch back and forth. We're discouraging heavily this year. Other Combat Con things to think about: make sure all your travel's taken care of. Make sure you've created a packing list of stuff. Make sure you think about stuff that you need. Think about I talked about a few weeks ago, I talked about tips for, Combat Con and being in Vegas and everything. Make sure you know what your meal plan is going to be, what your nutrition is going to be for staying engaged and focused. Remember the rules about food on the convention floor, things that we can't definitely do. So, but just think about those things, start planning them out. Do you need to go on a grocery store run or do a grocery store delivery or something like that when you arrive? When you arrive, are you going to have enough time to do everything you need? If you're arriving on Thursday, you got to get registered, and sometimes that can take up to an hour. These are just all things to think about. And it's better that you're thinking about them now than thinking about them when you're trying to focus on the fight. So, yes, sunscreen and well-fitting glasses if you intend to be outside during the day. Yes, we will be in Las Vegas. It is the middle of the desert. It is the middle of the summer. It will probably be like 110 degrees every day, I would assume. I guess we're lucky if we get to just like 100 someday. But if you're going to be outside, sunscreen is your friend. And when I say sunscreen, I don't mean the wimpy sunscreen. Get like the strongest stuff you can get if you're likely to burn, because you will burn. It's as simple as that. You will burn if you're not going to put something on and you're going to be outside for an extended period of time. So if you decide you want to go to the pool or something like that, make sure you're protecting yourself, because that could be a bad time. Hats and parasols if you glow like me. Yes, hats are a great option. I mean, that's cut. I mean, honestly, like in the desert, because it's not sweaty. Light stuff that covers your body is great. Like some of the long sleeve, like light compression stuff. I have like travel. I don't know, what do they call them, like adventure pants or whatever. They're just like very thin, but they have zip off options. But they cover my legs and they're UV, resistant, and so I can wear those outside, and it's not that uncomfortable because they breathe well and everything. So different things to think about, but there's a lot of elements to remember for Combat Con. Not to mention that if you're fighting, you have a tournament to try to fight in. You want to do well. You want to achieve the goals that you set out. And if you're distracted by, oh man, I didn't get this thing I need to sleep right, or I forgot this thing, or I forgot this piece of gear, that will take you out of your game more than anything else. Is stupid things that you should have been able to handle beforehand. In the next 3 weeks, there's going to be things that's going to be stressful, but there's going to be times when you're not doing anything. Let's be honest, right? You're going to be looking at your phone or watching TV or something like that. If there are things you can do to relieve the levels of stress that occur at Combat Con, please do so. That is important. So, as Jerry said, I have a great parasol to use. So just make sure that you're taking care of those things, making your lists now, avoiding any of those surprises, because let's be honest, when you're traveling, a surprise will happen. I mean, I flew to TSL 4 with my family, and the flight to Vegas from the Bay Area is like an hour and a half. It's nothing, right? It's not a long flight at all. We flew there. We're like, okay, we're gonna go. We have we're gonna land. And my daughter, who was, what was she? Like a little under 2 at the time, right? Like 1.5. She, we were like, okay, we're gonna land. We're gonna get to the airport, and then by the time we get to the hotel, it'll be about time to put her down for a nap, right? I had that plan, and we were flying in on Wednesday, mind you, so it wasn't like Thursday or anything. So thunderstorms happen around Las Vegas, right? Thunderstorm occurs. They were flying around Vegas waiting for it to clear up. The pilot says, hey, we need fuel. We got to fly back to Ontario Airport in California to get fuel. So we had to go to Ontario Airport, refuel, take off, and then go back and land in Vegas. So a 1.5-hour flight became a 3-hour flight. And my daughter was not happy that she couldn't get to sleep. And that was really stressful, right? But the thing is, I'll add, I didn't have to do any other stupid thing because I forgot to pack something, or I forgot to, remember, oh, I got to do this. Like I remembered everything I had to do. I had it written down. I planned it out, and then I didn't have to worry about it, and it's not like I was sticking to like a specific schedule, like people, go crazy on vacation and they schedule every minute. It was just getting everything set for what I needed to compete at the level I wanted to compete. And then when I was competing, I was focused on that. I wasn't distracted by things that I didn't need to be distracted by, right? So that fun scenario came up, where my daughter's literally screaming because she can't get to sleep, and it was she was a lap child at the time, and guess what? Nothing, not much we could do about it. So she literally screamed herself to sleep, and that was not a fun, like 30 minutes where she's just screaming the whole time, and not much you can do, because we thought we were going to have her at the very least in a stroller, by that time frame. So just keep that in mind, that something's going to go wrong. I know there was a guy who said once, it was a filmmaker, and he wrote in a book, about, he was talking about, how he rented a van, and he was basically that we put all his production gear in. He was taking that to make a film, right? He was going off to make, to shoot on location somewhere, in small independent film. And he said, just when you think life is, great, great song on the radio, you're listening to something great, beautiful scenery, you think, man, this is just a great feeling, right? He's like, your front tire will go flat. Prepare for that. Be prepared. I mean, don't prepare for your tire to go flat, but be prepared for that scenario and to handle the stress associated with it, so that stress doesn't transfer to your fighting. I want to go in and I want to win TSL 5, right? I want to win exotics. I want to win standard. That's what I want to do, right? I want to win against the best opponents possible, no matter who they are, no matter where they came from, no matter what. I want to fight those people. I don't want to fight the people that are stressed about something that happened on the way there, that they have all these other things they got to do, and they're totally distracted, and I have a fight where I walk all over them. I want to fight that we go back and forth, and I win 9-8, right? I don't want to fight where I win 9-3. That's not fun for me. That's not fun for you. So let's make sure that we're bringing everything we have into our fight, because we haven't seen each other for a while. We haven't fought for a while. So just bring that with you as you're going. Yeah, that's kind of all I know. It's kind of like a long rant by me, but it's just, you are going on vacation, so enjoy it. You are going to fight, and you do TSL because you enjoy it. Yes, I go to TSL and I'm going to do all this, stuff for media, and I'm going to be running all these different things and stuff like that. And it can be stressful, but I enjoy it, right? I wouldn't be going to TSL 5 to do things I don't enjoy, right? Just remember that when you're doing it, like when you have to wake up at a certain time because you have to catch a flight or something like that, or you have to make a special trip before before you leave, so you can have everything you need in Vegas. Remember that you're going to do something that you love, you enjoy. You're going to meet your extended Sabre family, whether you've met them before or not. So, okay, enough of that. Next week, will I be on? I think so. I don't think I have anything else to do. I do not. So I will be back with more Repost and Riposte. I will be back the following week for Repost and Riposte. I will not be on the 22nd, because that will be the 22nd will be Combat Con in TSL 5. So Maybe I'll go live for like 5-10 minutes, but in reality, I'm going to assume that TSL will be live on the Facebook page and the YouTube and Twitch, and you will get to see that stuff. So you don't have to worry. Yeah, there probably won't be much quarantine TV that week because everybody's going to be prepping, unless Alec wants to go live or Mark wants to go live before they do that. But towards the end of the week, when the tournament is in full play, that's not going to happen. So just keep that in mind. I'm going to mark off my checkpoint for TSL bad habits and how to fix them, so I know that I did this topic. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4 more topics in the TSL bad habits and how to fix them. If you are not familiar with, if this is the first time you're seeing it, some of them are on the YouTube, some of them are on the Facebook group, because I didn't start broadcasting to both the Facebook group and the YouTube until a little bit partway into it. So, but I've talked about things like taking 2 big steps, cutting with the hand rather than your blade, moving your body before your blade, lunging. I've talked about no defense today, how people chase their opponent's blade, how they lean their head forward, how they do suicidal attacks, and how they fight in a straight line. So all of those things are topics that you can look up in the YouTube channel. And if it's not on the YouTube channel, it's in the Facebook group. You just got to search for it. If you just search Repost and Riposte, I'm sure you'll be able to pull up all of my previous ones. Obviously I've been doing this off and on for close to a little over a year now, but it's something to just keep in mind that you can access just the bad habit stuff. There are other things that are worthwhile to watch, but I just wanted to make sure people are aware of it. Then I'm going to log off then. So thank you for watching. It looks like we had about 6-7 people on most of the time, so I'm glad I was engaging enough to keep on, whether it was in the background while you're doing dishes or making dinner or whatever. So, and I need to get make sure my family has dinner already. We'll find out. I think so. But and then you'll see me next week, and I think we'll have a Road to Combat Con tomorrow as well. It will not be me, but it will be someone tomorrow. So until then, take care, stay safe, and united through sabers.